Hello and welcome to Force 13 Live. We're doing a short update here on what's going on in the tropics. We are looking at Tropical Storm Gordon, which has winds of 60 miles per hour according to the National Hurricane Center's last update, which was released at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Was it 60 miles per hour? I've got different information. Yes, it was indeed. I'm joined by the team, by the way, consisting of Nelson, Strat, and David. I just saw some conflicting information there briefly, an old advisory, but we got the right one. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 60 miles an hour, 1003 millibars, 26.7 north, 83.4 west. Tropical storm warning for the southwest coast of Florida was discontinued. A storm surge warning in effect for Shell Beach to Dauphin Island. A storm surge watch for west of Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River and east of Dauphin Island to Navarre. A hurricane warning for the mouth of the Pearl River to the Alabama-Florida border, and a tropical storm warning for west of the mouth of the Pearl River to east of Morgan City, Louisiana, including Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas, and the Alabama-Florida border to Okaloosa-Walton County line. So a lot to wrap your head around there in terms of the warnings alone. And we're looking at latest imagery of Gordon right now. Strat, how has it been proceeding since we were last on the air?
Compared to 5 hours ago when we were last on air, the system is much smaller. A lot of the previously associated convection has kind of split off to the north and dissipated to the south. The system's become much more compact, and it's really slightly more disorganized than earlier initially, but it's starting to get its act together again, and that's why you're seeing deepening of the system and up to 60 miles an hour. That's why the National Hurricane Center anticipates a hurricane at landfall now.
Indeed it does, and that's why the hurricane warning is in effect. Before we take... In fact, let's go and actually first of all take a look at that track map. I think it's here. Yes, there it is. There's the latest advisory and the latest National Hurricane Center warning cone. You can see hurricane status expected just... Well, they put the dot slightly after landfall, but obviously it would become a hurricane prior to that dot, just to clear up any confusion that may result from that. You can see the cone encompasses New Orleans. Central Louisiana is completely out of it, and anywhere west of there, out of the cone. Could still see tropical storm conditions on some of those areas though. And then towards the east, the cone extends to pretty much the Alabama-Florida border, so you can rule out a landfall outside of the cone, we would think, unless something drastically changes. Tropical storm warnings extending into the Florida Panhandle as well. So you can see the hurricane status there, expected to make landfall as a minimal category 1. That is going to be late on Tuesday night into early hours of Wednesday. We expect the landfall to occur, and then a gradual weakening and a gradual curvature inland. So that's the latest on Gordon. And just to add to that, the hazards affecting land: storm surge, Shell Beach to Dauphin Island, Alabama, to expect 3 to 5 feet of surge. Navarre, Florida to Dauphin Island, including Mobile Bay, 2 to 4 feet. Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River, 2 to 4 feet. The mouth of the Mississippi River to the Louisiana-Texas border, 1 to 2 feet. As for rain, 2 to 4 inches expected over the northwestern Bahamas, Florida Keys and South Florida through early Tuesday, with isolated maximum amounts of 8 inches possible over the southern Florida peninsula. Most of that rain is starting to clear the extreme southern part of Florida and southeastern parts right now. And of course flash flooding is possible. Lots of flash flood watches have been out in the Gulf Coast states. This has been the case for quite some time. Nelson, you're in New Orleans. What's the latest there?
The latest here is that declared a state of emergency. These services tomorrow, besides police and fire protection, preparing for the storm. All along the Gulf Coast in that cone area, schools have been canceled. When we broadcast earlier, it was only one school district in Louisiana. Recently, the entire Orleans Parish school system has decided that there will be no school tomorrow and we'll be further monitoring on Wednesday. It's at this time that if you haven't made preparations, even if you're in New Orleans, which is on the edge of the cone, you should really think about making sure that you've got water, batteries, flashlights, and food. This is not going to be a dire situation, I do not believe, but you don't want to be without the essentials.
And I believe you'll be setting up a webcam at your location tomorrow.
I will be. I will have an IP stream live on the 13 US site. It will be a most stream, as unfortunately I have to work, but it will have radar imagery, the satellite imagery, and a look outside my front door so you can see what the city of New Orleans looks like before the impact of a tropical system.
Indeed, we struggled a little bit with the signal there. Just to clarify, that is going to be on the Force 13 US channel, one of our subsidiary channels, which you can find access quite easily from the main Force 13 channel page. We've also got David with us tonight. David, you've been looking not only at Gordon but also at Typhoon Jebi, which is poised to make landfall in Japan.
Yes, I have, and I was just reading the latest information from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, and Jebi is 243 nautical miles south of Iwakuni. I know I haven't got that right. Tracking northward at 17 knots over the last 6 hours. Animated enhanced infrared satellite imagery indicates a gradual weakening trend with erosion and deep convection over the western periphery of the system. However, the infrared depicts tightly curved banding wrapping into a small 10 nautical mile eye, which this indicates weakening low-level circulation with a partial eye wall. So, Nathan, that lends support to what we said before we came on air, that it was...
well, we're looking at the imagery now. It looks like it's about to make landfall imminently, and it's accelerating. It's just limping over the line and about to make landfall on the eastern part of the island of Shikoku in Japan.
And look at the dry air to the...
And that is actually further west than a lot of the models were saying overall. A little bit, ever so slightly. But that is why we have forecast cones.
Yeah, and I think to note, there's a discrepancy between the JMA and the JTWC for what the intensity is as well.
The JMA still say it's a Category 2 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. There is the JMA's website, and you can see they still say 945 millibars, 100 miles an hour sustained winds, 85 knots. So that's interesting. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center say it's down to Category 1. We've also got other systems out there right now. Strat, do you want to give us the rundown on what's going on elsewhere?
Yep, so we also have Tropical Storm Florence, intensified a bit unexpectedly earlier today. ATCF hasn't updated, so nothing new for intensity from the past hour, but systems looking alright, but still is in hostile conditions.
I don't actually have any imagery of that. Could you provide some for us if possible?
Yeah, I'll pull up some imagery quickly right here, and I'll just stream it quickly. Here it is. This is Florence over the past few hours. I'd still say it's deeper convection than probably 7 hours ago or so, or 5 hours, but it doesn't have the same organization or centralization of convection over the center that it had earlier today. It's just placed more to the west.
Looking very curious indeed.
And then we also have Olivia, which according to the HCCF is a hurricane now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a little look. There it is. Yeah, borderline at least.
So probably, I think they're probably saying 65 knots if I do a quick check.
That one's moving harmlessly out to sea over the East Pacific. And
yeah,
I just want to bring you to Norman there as well.
Yep, let me pull up Norman for us quickly as well. Still weakening, it seems. This is the very edge of the periphery of Ghost 16. If I switch over here, I'll be able to get some better quality stuff from Himawari. Gordon definitely on a weakening.
It won't be Himawari over there.
Ghost 15. Here
They
it
still
is.
not got Ghost 17 yet. Well, there it is, Norman looking like it's
Ram.
dying.
Yeah. Gordon doesn't have too much left in it.
Indeed. So, that's Norman. And this is Gordon that you're seeing on my screen now, starting to move away from Florida. Most of the serious conditions from the storm have moved offshore, and we're going to be spending the whole of tomorrow, I anticipate, figuring out how it's going to affect the Gulf Coast states later on too. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana all look to be in the crosshairs for Gordon, and also part of the Florida Panhandle as well. Hurricane warnings out at this time. As I said before, storm surge warnings also for some areas. This was just a short update. Any parting comments from any of you guys?
Nathan, sorry, I'm going to get in first. What I've been thinking before we came on air, Gordon, for it to intensify, develop further, it would actually have to slow down, wouldn't it?
Well, it would probably help. It wouldn't be the only thing that would help it. The sea surface temperatures are very warm. I don't know about the wind shear, but it's got about 24 hours.
24 hours.
And in that amount of time, the storm can certainly get to hurricane status, given it's already 60 miles per hour. It could possibly get to Category 2 status in that amount of time as well. Worst case.
Worst case. Appreciate that, because I'm just following some of the communication in the chat room, and
it is a very small cyclone, and that's what people are getting at, that it can intensify quickly. At the moment, I don't really see particular signs of massive intensification yet, but gradual intensification appears to be the case. But don't forget, a storm that is so small as this one is can not only intensify quickly, but weaken just as fast, if not even more quickly than that.
Nathan, are they dangerous, the small ones?
Well, they are more unpredictable, but overall you would rather have a storm, a small major hurricane making landfall, than a large one. You see something like Hurricane Sandy, which was only a Category 1 strength at landfall, not even tropical, and caused so much damage because of the massive wind field, whereas you have much smaller storms that could cause larger damages over near the centre of the landfall zone, but not so much elsewhere.
And Strat, the latest on the wind shear? Any possibility of a wind shear chart?
Hasn't updated for about 9 hours now. The data's unavailable for some reason. But last check on it, back when this storm was still just over Florida, it was in an area of lower shear, higher shear in front of it as it starts to move northwestward. So it doesn't say anything though whether or not that shear will decrease in the coming day. But if the National Hurricane Center has it intensifying into a hurricane, there should be more favorable conditions ahead of it.
Alright, well, thanks very much for joining us, guys, and thanks very much for watching as well. This was a live update on Tropical Storm Gordon and everything else that's going on in the Pacific too. We'll have more updates on the Force 13 channel throughout this evening, and of course we'll have a lot of more coverage tomorrow, especially if the current scenario plays out. You can follow Force 13 on our social outlets on Facebook and Twitter, search Force 13 all in text. You can also add my personal account on Discord, Fool13 at extension 9094, and you can also add Force 13 on Skype as well. That's all from us now. We'll see you again soon, and we'll have a lot more to tell you, most likely later this evening and tomorrow. Good night.
Bye.